Let's look at cost center master data. We'll see some of the CEO master data objects in this presentation, particularly on the cost centers. Now these are some of the CEO master data objects. One is cost elements. As we discussed earlier, cost elements are usually mapped with GL accounts for revenue and expense accounts, and these are created as primary cost elements. We are using the word primary over here. It's called primary because primarily it's flowing from the financial accounting via the GL accounts, and that is via the revenue and expense GL accounts. So that's why we're calling this primary cost elements, because this is the initial flow of values from FI module to the CO module. Then you have a second set of cost elements called secondary cost elements. Now the word secondary, we are using it because this is used for internal allocation within the CO module. So first we call it primary cost element, that is coming from the GL accounts, the revenue and expense accounts. That's because directly coming from the FI modules, that's your primary. And this is secondary cost elements, another category of cost elements, because you're going to allocate, once the cost is already there in the CO module, you're going to allocate these costs from one cost object to another cost object. That's why you have two options in cost elements, primary or secondary. And we will discuss this in more detail in the cost element master data presentation. Now the main thing in this presentation we are going to focus on is the cost centers. Cost centers are like department or divisions of an organization, and you assign expenses, or just like it says it here, costs to these cost centers. For example, your company might have many different departments and divisions: finance department, IT department, HR department, admin department, and so on. And they might have their own subdivisions. Financial department will have financial accounting, management accounting, corporate finance, corporate planning, and so on. And all these subdivisions also can be created as cost centers. You might also have production related cost centers: production cost center A, production cost center B, engineering cost centers, maintenance cost centers, and so on. So these are all created as cost centers purely to capture the expenses. You have another CEO master data object called activity types. These are production or service activities provided to the company by a cost center. For example, you might have a maintenance cost center, and the activity types from that maintenance cost center might be labor. And these activity types are measured in either time or quantity. So if your cost center, a maintenance cost center, is providing labor to maintain the plant or to this production line specification or to produce a product, and you are sending out staff from this particular cost center, that is your maintenance cost center, to go and monitor those products, that is measured in time. So those activity types will be called labor hours. So you might have a maintenance cost center and their activity types will be called labor hours. It can also be quantities. For example, some cost center might produce certain amount of quantities, maybe 10 products or 20 products. Then those also can be called as activity types. You have another CEO master data object called statistical key figures. So just like its word itself, it's a static form, and they are key figures which are usually used to allocate cost from one cost center to another cost center, or from one internal order to other cost centers, anywhere between two cost objects. When you want to allocate cost, you use a statistical key figure. And these key figures can be, for example, like square meters, the number of staff. There are different type of many statistical key figures you can use, even the values like revenues or certain expenses or certain cost of goods sold, and so on. So I'll give you an example. You might have your building rental expense. For your whole building, you might have 3 or 4 floors, and your total building rent is per month, let's say $10,000. Now you are having 5 departments in that. Now you can't directly allocate 10,000 divided equally by 5, because some departments might occupy 2 floors while other department might occupy only half a floor or even a quarter size of a floor. So then it's incorrect to equally divide it by those departments, and you don't want to put a percentage also. So you need to find a way of allocating that cost. So there you can use square meters, which might be a reasonable way of allocating the costs, because you can see how much of square meters each department is using. and then you enter those statistical key figure against each of those cost centers, and then later you can use your total building rental expense to allocate based on the square meters. So it will give a proportionate on that. For example, your department A uses 10 square meters, department B uses 20 square meters, department C uses 30 square meters, department D uses 40 square meters, and you have $10,000 to allocate. So let's say you want to allocate to department A. So you see its total square meters is 10, total number of square meters is 100. So 10 divided by 100 is 10%. So $10,000, you will be allocating to department A $1,000. System usually does this calculation, so you don't have to worry about all this, how the system calculates or allocate about this now. We are mainly looking at the CEO master data object that is for especially for cost centers. I'm just giving a brief description of other type of CEO master data objects which are very closely linked with cost centers, which will be coming across later in our presentations. Now this hierarchical diagram shows a typical organization where you will have your company code residing at the top, or your, let's say for this example, I'm just calling it as company M&M, and you will have different departments over here: admin, HR, IT, finance, sales, and each of these will have their own subdivisions. Admin will have facilities management, legal, procurement. HR will have recruitment, performance. IT will have technical support, enterprise systems, and so on. And you can divide all these different departments into separate divisions also. Now all of these individual units will be created as a individual cost centers. Now if you're having a top node over here, administration, you don't have to create that as a cost center, because you'll be creating the actual lower level units as cost centers. And the top node, if we just take if it's actually not a real cost center, or it's not a real unit, but it's more of a hierarchical unit, then you can create something called a cost center group in the system hierarchy, just like a grouping level. So you can run reports at this level itself, whereas you directly allocate the cost to the individual cost centers. Now let's look at configuring this in the system. Now first, once you have the controlling area activated, you need to activate cost center accounting as well. So there is a menu path given over here. I'll show you more in detail in the next configuration presentation. And also important that when you create the cost center, activate the cost center accounting, you need to mention the cost center standard hierarchy area. So this acts like a top node over here, which usually give your company name over here. And under this, you can create many different subfolders, and under each folder, or you call it as a cost center group, you can create your individual cost centers. Now once you activate the cost center accounting, at the same time you can activate the other components as well. Now order management, this is where you actually activate the cost center accounting component. You just make it from inactive to component active. Order management is actually for internal orders. If you tick on this, it means activity type is also active for cost centers. And commitment management, this is also more related to the internal orders. You can also keep that as active. Activity based costing, profit center accounting, and these are all more related with the CO module. These are related to the other modules. Project systems is for WBS is related to the projects. Sales orders, cost objects, there are more cost objects will be coming across later. So at the beginning of the controlling module, when you activate the components, if you want, you can activate all the other objects as well. Or when you need it also, you can go back to the controlling module setting and activate what is required. Now for activating the cost centers and to look at example of creating the cost center master data, I'll use the same video clip as we did in financial accounting under the asset accounting module, where we did integration with cost centers, because we want to keep the cost center standard hierarchy area consistent. We don't want to, because we have already assigned our company code to that particular controlling area, and we have done relevant setting for that. And for those students who are actually following from the FI module and they are transitioning onto the CO module, you want to keep the information consistent, and so they can actually follow with the same company code and same controlling area. So I'll use that video clip to show how to activate cost center accounting and to create cost center master data. So now you have seen how to define the controlling area. You have assigned the company code to controlling area. And the next step is to activate cost center accounting in controlling area, because that's what we want to do. We want to create cost centers. So let's go and activate cost center accounting in controlling area. The SAP menu path is controlling, cost center accounting, and activate cost center accounting in controlling area. Execute the transaction. Select your controlling area, the one we just created now, Z100. Or Z000, sorry, that's the one we created. So select that and click on activate components. Okay, click on new entries. So you can put from this year to this year like that. So let's specify from year 2000 onwards to 9999 and so on. So let's click on the components we want to active. Cost centers, yes, we want to make it active. So component active over here. This for internal orders. Let's just activate everything. You don't have to do anything over there. Profit center accounting also, just make it active for all currencies. Okay, and let's save the transaction now. Press enter in your keyboard. Automatically comes to 9999, so it's active for all the years. Everything else is okay. You don't have to do any validation or anything. And click on save to continue. Press OK for the transport request. Control indicator in controlling area, just information message. So just press OK to continue, and data is saved. So assignment of company codes, you have already assigned. That is Z123, your company code, to this controlling area Z000. And let's go back. Okay. So now you have done that. You have activated cost center accounting in controlling area. Now let's just go back to your controlling area settings and double check. Enterprise settings, definition, controlling area, maintain controlling area. Execute that. Maintain controlling area again. So go to your controlling area, which is Z000. Double click on that. So now you can see everything's already there, what you have assigned. All the information is coming up. Menu controlling area, cross company code, cost accounting, currency type, currency valuation, chart of account, fiscal year. All the settings are okay, and save the transaction. No changes done. Press OK to continue, and go back. Yes, press OK to continue. Exit the screen. And I think I missed one setting, that is, let's check again. Activate cost center account in controlling area. Go to our controlling area again, Z000. There it is. Go to assignment of company codes. Okay, and you got to double click over here. See, oh, not there. Sorry, let's go back to activate components again. So I missed any settings. Just check. Okay, I found it now. So in our main controlling area screen, just at the main basic data stage itself, just double click that. And here you need to specify the cost center standard hierarchy. So standard hierarchy is like your top node of your organizational structure. So in this example, you can see my top node is company MNM. That's mainly your company's name. So I'm going to just give it as a standard hierarchy name of, say something like MNM. Just simple. You can put up to maximum, I think, about 10 characters. So I'm just going to call it MNM over here and save the transaction. So then system asking, should MNM be created as a standard hierarchy? Press yes. So you need to define the standard hierarchy in the cost center activation transaction. Then only you can proceed to create the cost centers underneath this standard hierarchy. Let's go back again. Okay, now you can proceed to start creating the cost centers. That is over here under controlling, you have got create cost centers. There are also short transaction code for this is KS01 or KS02. So I'm going to click on cost centers over here, create cost centers. So I'm going to click on create cost center. So controlling area, Z000. So okay to continue. Now you can give a cost center ID over here. So I'm going to just call it, let's say now administration. So I'm going to create one for facilities management. So I'm going to call it, maybe I'm going to give it a top node like 101, 102, 103, 104, 105. And for those cost centers, I can put 10101, 10102, 10103, like that. So I'm just going to call it 10101. Valid from, you can put date like from 2000 onwards itself, or the current today's date also, or from this fiscal year date, whatever you want to put from validity period. I'm just going to put like this. And give a cost center description and a name. So I'm just going to call it facilities management. Just copy that cost center over here, paste it. Person responsible, so here you can give the manager's name. This is called cost center categories. This is all the CEO module components is used for reporting and some other purposes. So just select a relevant category like admin. So hierarchy area, this is standard hierarchy area. So we have already created M&M. So let's select that. The currency also going to have it in AUD. For now, we just leave the profit center blank, and you can save the transaction. It should also ask you for the company code. Just keep messaging profit center is active, but no profit center is specified. You just ignore the message by pressing enter in your keyboard, and press OK to continue. Now the cost center has been created. Now we can start to use this cost center in our transactions for the asset master data. Like that, you can go inside the standard hierarchy and create all the different cost centers, and you can specify your asset master data to different set of cost centers. I'll also show you another easy method of creating cost centers. Of course, you have to have all the controlling area settings and the company code assignment to the controlling area setting, and as well as the standard hierarchy defined. But just to create the cost center master data, you can also use the SAP standard menu. Just go to accounting, controlling area, cost center accounting, go to master data, cost center, individual processing, and create. That will bring you back to the creating the cost center screen, which you just saw earlier. You can also exit this transaction, and also create it as part of the standard hierarchy also. Just go to the standard hierarchy, click on change, and here you can define the cost centers and the standard hierarchy cost center groups also. So that will bring you to this screen. As you can see, the standard hierarchy M&M, we defined it earlier, the name M&M. So here I can call it company M&M. Okay, and this is the cost center we created, facilities management. So you can see all the cost centers will be shown with a red box with green, with coins kind of thing stacked up over here, and all the information we entered is over here. And under this standard hierarchy, we can create groups also. So just right click, click on create groups. This is basic for all the CEO module reporting. I'm just giving some extra information over here. If you want to create a nice group structure, you can create it over here. So just right click, select group, and the group name I'm going to call it 101, call it administration, press enter in your keyboard, and the group will come up. And you can then take this is a group and this actual cost center, so you can just highlight that and drag and drop it underneath this group also. And now this group is under this standard hierarchy. You can also minimize the screen. Let me see, just click on that button, and here it is. This is your company M&M, and this is your administration group. So just like we saw in our slide, We have human resources, IT, finance, sales. So you can also create your own groups also. So just right click this. So all these are going to be grouped at the lower level or at the same level. So you're going to create all these other groups at the same level. So click on same level. I'm going to call it 102 human resources. Press enter in your keyboard and the group will get created over there. And press OK, press this screen. OK. So now you can go and create your human resources cost centers under this group. Same just like how you created facilities management and you have assigned it over here. If you want to create another cost center under administration, for example, like legal department, you can go and create that also over here. So I'm just going to right click that. So I'm going to create it under this group. So create cost center under this administration group. And that will bring you to this screen. So you give a cost center ID, so 10102. So you can see analysis time frame. You can also change it to 00 also if you want. Name, you can call it legal. And person, you can say Jane Doe. Cost center category, so again you can choose admin same category. Organization is coming over here. If you want to put organization, again you're getting message saying profit center accounting active. You can just ignore it, press enter in your keyboard. And here if you want, you can specify other information as well and save the transaction. Press OK to continue. And you'll get a message saying data is being saved. Now if you just minimize the screen, and you can see these two cost centers have been created under the administration group. Similarly, you can create many different groups and create your own cost centers and have your standard hierarchy complete. So that's how you create cost centers in your standard hierarchy. You can do this method, or you can go to the previous method also shown. Let's look at what is a cost center category. Now when you created the cost center master data, we selected a cost center category irrelevant with line with that cost center division, which is your department or division. Whether it's going to be an admin division, then we selected the admin cost center category. If it's a production cost center, then we select a production cost center category. By default, SAP has given many different cost center categories. These are all denoted by a one character ID. It can be a letter or it can be a number. In the master record of the cost centers, cost center category is a mandatory field, so you have to enter a cost center category. Now this is used for two purposes. One is for purely information purposes. If you just want to list down all the cost centers based on the cost center category, you can do this via reports or master data tables. Second option given by the cost center category is to actually control what kind of costs are getting posted to these cost centers. Now when you create the cost center category, if you create a new one, or you can even change the existing one, you have all those options to decide whether it can take actual postings, secondary postings, planned postings, revenue postings, and so on, commitment postings. There are about 6 or 7 options which you can define for the cost center category. Now based on the config for that particular cost center category, it applies to the cost center as well. Now let's look at the configuration for a cost center category. The SAP menu path for this is cost center accounting, under controlling module, cost center accounting, master data, cost centers, and you have defined cost center categories. If you look at the detailed documentation over here, SAP gives you the information regarding to what is a cost center category, and it says these are the options that you can use with regard to a cost center category, whether to lock means actually to block postings. So block primary posting, which is your main posting from your F5, lock secondary posting, which is allocation within your CO module, lock revenue postings and revenue planning. So in cost centers we usually capture expenses. So we do not capture revenues, but you can also have the option of blocking revenues posting to cost center as well, or have revenue posted to cost centers, but it will be like a statistical posting. Lock commitment updates. For example, if you raise a purchase order and you use a particular cost center, and at that time it will be like a commitment to this particular cost center, and when you actually have the inventory coming in, a financial transaction coming in, then that commitment will change from a commitment value to an actual value. You also have options for planning. That's again showing as primary cost planning, secondary cost planning, consumption of quantities. So you can also track quantities, how much of quantities you are producing from this cost center, or even at the time of inventory, how much of quantities you're buying from this cost center or selling from this cost center. And those kind of consumption quantities also can be tracked at the cost center level. So let's execute this transaction. And you can see by default there are many cost centers or the categories already given by the system: production, service cost center, sales, admin, management, and so on. You can even create your own one. I suggest not to change the existing one because this is common to the whole client. So many other company codes also might be using the same categories. So if you want to create a new one, you can always copy one option, that is click one thing and press this button, copy as, or you can click on new entries and create your own one. These are the fields. If there's a tick over here, it means it's locked. So quantity means it's locked over here. See this option. Let's just check that again. So indicator defining where the system issues a message if no quantity or quantity unit is specified for a commitment or actual postings. So in the master data of the cost center, if you tick this, it will record the quantity of the item. So we'll just untick that. And here actual primary postings, I think here if you click on this, it might be a lock over here. Yeah, that's a lock indicator. So if this is selected, then you cannot post any direct financial transactions to this particular cost center. So it applies for this cost center category. So any cost center which has this number 1 category or this particular category ID 1 and it has this ticked, it means you can't post any financial postings. This is for secondary postings, this is for revenue postings, this is for planned postings. Nowadays we don't do much planning at cost center level, or usually actually use a CO module, because ever since with the advent of the BPC module, which is a budget planning and consolidation, it's a separate system with SAP, and with that you can do planning online with Excel based interface. So most of the companies are now investing on BPC and they are doing planning via the BPC module. And here other option also, that is to block plan revenue, and commitment option, whether you want to have commitment active or not. And this is the final functional area. We are not using functional area in this presentation, and also in the FI module also I not discussed on functional area. It's not part of the syllabus for those who are doing the certification. It's just like the business area, you have the segments and profit centers. It's another means of reporting provided by the FI module. So this is why you can actually define the different type of cost center categories, and the properties also you can define whether you want it to be locked. All these, I think there are about 6 indicators are related to locking the particular posting, and this is to track quantities and this is to track commitments. So I'm just going to exit this transaction, do not make any changes, and let's just see some of our cost centers that we have created in the system. So KA0 KS, I think 03 is to display cost centers. That's right, KS03. Controlling area, let me select my controlling area. So that's Z100. Press OK to continue. Select the cost centers which I have created. So I'm just going to key in my cost center number over here, 10101. Press enter in your keyboard, and that brings you to display cost center, the basic screen. To display cost center, the short transaction code is KS03. To create cost center is KS01, and to change cost center is KS02. And while you're displaying the cost center also, you can go to this menu, cost center, and you can also create, change or display other cost centers. Now you can see all the information there. We have already seen this previous in the presentation. This way I want to take you to cost center category. Now we have specified 4 for administration. Okay. And as per the administration setting for cost center category in this screen 4, you can see actual revenue and planned revenue are locked over here. Now if I bring you to this screen over here again, and if you look at the control tab, you can see actual revenue and planned revenue are locked. This setting is based on the cost center category. And you also see the other options, whether you want to record quantity, consumption of quantities against this cost center, or whether you want to have commitment updated, then you can click this block. And you also have the history of who created this cost center, which date they created, and when all the changes made to this cost center you can see it in the history tab, and the different change documents for each changes done to the cost center master data. You can see this where the change documents. Now for your assignment, you need to start creating cost centers. But before you actually start creating cost centers, there are a few settings that you need to do in configuration. First is to activate cost center accounting for your controlling area. Then you need to ensure that you create the cost center standard hierarchy. So once you create the standard hierarchy, that is in the controlling area cost center settings, you need to specify what is your cost center standard hierarchy ID. Once you specify that ID, then you can start creating the cost center master data. Now we saw a few different ways of how you can create the cost center master data. One is actually at the time of creating the standard hierarchy, actually try to do the changes to the standard hierarchy. You can directly go into that screen and you can create your relevant cost center groups. And underneath each of those groups, you can create your cost centers. Other option is, of course, go through the SAP menu where you have under accounting, controlling, cost center accounting, master data, you can create the cost centers. Of course, you can directly use the short transaction code KS01 to create, K02 to change, and K03 to display the cost centers that you have.